Okay, so we are back and we are working on our past tense book. Again, we are still with the preterite tense, which is one of the two past tenses in Spanish. And this is some of the material from chapter 7, which y'all should be starting this week. So in my last video that I just posted, it was irregular verbs in the preterite. And we filled that out, and it was ser, ir, and dar. And that was actually on page 230 in your textbook. So you might want to go ahead and just mark that real quick so you know where it is in the textbook. Okay, so we did our irregular verbs, ser, ir, and dar. What we're going to do now is, underneath that tab, on your next tab, we're going to do verb groups in the preterite tense. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it says verb groups in the preterite tense. This is where I group things, and I'm going to group these verbs a little differently than your textbook, but that's because that's how I like to visualize it. But they're on page 231 of your textbook. So if you want to write here at the bottom of that tab, maybe you want to write page 231. Okay. So right in parentheses, I wrote 231. Which kind of doesn't look like a 3, does it? But it is. 231. Okay. So on page 231. These are our verb groups. So I went ahead and prepared my book before I started the video. And to prepare your book, you need to go ahead and just take this particular page in your book and turn it into a T-chart. Just make a big T so that you have 4 squares across your page. Because we got 4 groups. 4 groups of irregular verbs that go in these. Okay. 4 groups. And these verbs are just so completely irregular in the preterite tense that it just really, you have to write them down and you have to get used to them, get used to seeing them, okay? So we're going to start with our first group, and I'm going to put my first group right here in my upper right-hand corner, okay? And this group is called the OOV group, the UV, the OOV. The UV. Okay? And that's because when we work with these verbs in the preterite tense, these particular verbs, they're going to get a new stem. And the new stem is going to have UV in it. Okay? So, our first one that we're going to work with is tener. Remember, tener means to have. So I'm going to write it right there. Tener means tener. Tener means to have. Okay? When you use tener in the present tense, remember it's a yogo verb. Tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tienen. But when you use it in the preterite tense, in the preterite past tense in Spanish, when you use it in the preterite tense, it gets a whole new stem. It just totally changes spelling. I don't know why, but it does. So tener is going to go to T-U-V. That's your new stem. That's your new stem. T-U-V. And you're going to put your endings, your preterite tense endings, onto this, which way am I going? To this new stem. I can't do it. You're going to put your preterite tense endings on this stem. Okay? And we're going to do another one. Let's do another one before I explain the endings. Estar. Remember estar means to be in Spanish? Like ser and estar. Estar is a OOV verb. Because in the present tense, it was estoy, estás, está, estamos, están. In the past tense, in the preterite tense, it's going to get a totally new stem, and it's going to have UV in it. So estar is going to go into estuve. That's your new stem. Estuve. All right, and see where I draw the line at the bottom? I mean the line at the end. Where am I? Right there, see that line? That's where you're going to put your new ending, right, for your subject in the preterite tense. Okay? And we have one more that the book gives you, and that is andar. Andar kind of means like to walk, or loosely speaking in some colloquial slang, right? For Spanish speakers, they might use it like, does it run? Does the car anda? Does it run? But it really means to walk. And it also will change to anduve. So its new stem will be anduve. Okay, y'all see that? Like sometimes the light gets, hold it in different places so y'all can see it. Anduve. Okay, the endings that go with this verb are, we're going to make a little box with our endings. Those are our endings. Let's kind of do it like this. And we're going to make a box with our endings. Okay? I'm going to put my endings in here. So for the yo form, it's just going to be an E. For the tu form, it's going to be iste. For the el, ella, and usted form, it's just going to be an O. For the we form, the nosotros, it's imos. And for the el, ella, and ustedes form, it's eran. Okay? So it's kind of a weird mix of our regular AR verb endings in the preterite and our ER-IR verb endings in the preterite. Notice that there are no accent marks on these endings like we have in the regular AR, ER, IR verbs in the preterite tense. With any of our irregular verbs, even with ser, ir, and dar, there's no accent marks on these. Okay, so you would just interchange these endings on these new stems depending on who your subject is. And we can do some examples up here on the top. And we'll use the verb tener. So if I wanted to say I had a test last period, I would say yo tuve un examen. I had an exam. I had a test. Yo tuve. I took my stem, my new stem for the verb tener, tuve, and because my subject is yo, I added the E ending onto that new stem, so it becomes tuve. But if you had a test, I would say tú tuviste un examen. You had a test last period. So again, I took my new stem, and because my subject was tú, I put iste on the end of it. So tuv, iste, tuviste. And if Sam had a test last period, then I would say Sam tuvo. I'd put an O on the end of it for him. So Sam tuvo un examen. See? For us, if we had a test, I would say nosotros tuvimos. Or maybe y'all had a test. Ustedes tuvieron. Okay? Tuvieron. So you just get these new stems. It works the same for andar and estar. you're going to, for the past tense, for the preterite tense, go to your new stem, and whoever the subject is, decide your ending. Okay? All right, let's do our second group. Our second group is the you group. Just a you. Okay? These verbs now, when we use them in the preterite tense, are also going to get a new stem, but they're going to have a U in it. Not a UV, but just a U. Okay? So, here we go. Our first one is poner. Poner means to put. Remember? To put. It's a yoga verb. Pongo, pones, pone, ponemos, pone. We learned it in chapter 5. In the preterite tense, it gets an entirely new stem. And its new stem is pus. Pus. So it changes to pus. And then that blank stands for where you're going to put your ending. Okay. So our next verb is saber. Saber, we also learned in chapter 5, means to know. Remember, it's the smart know. It's to know how to do something, to know facts, to know information. Whereas conocer is to be familiar with a person, place, or thing, which means you've been there, or you've met the person, or you've actually worked with the thing. So conocer is the been there, done that, got the t-shirt. But saber is the smart to know. Well, in the past tense, in the preterite tense, it gets a totally new stem, and it has a U in it. So it is soup. Soup. Soup is our new stem. Okay. Then we're going to use poder. Remember poder with a D? Poder and poner are often confused. Poner means to put, but poder means to be able to or can. Like, puedo ir al baño? Can I go to the bathroom? Or, puedes bailar salsa? Can you dance salsa? So poder gets a totally new stem in the past tense too, in the preterite tense. And of course it's going to have that U in it. So it changes to P-U-D. Okay? P-U-D. Okay? P-U-D. Okay. So with these, let's put our endings. We'll make our little box again to the side. And the endings for these, for the U group, are exactly the same as the endings for the UV group, the UV group. Okay? Exactly the same. So, for the yo form, it's E. Tu form is iste. Él, ella, and ustedes, o. Nosotros, imos. Y ustedes, ellos, y ellas, ieran. Okay? Alright. Now, let's give you an example up here at the top. Okay? Saber in the preterite tense, well, saber in the present tense means to know, right? But saber in the Preterite tense means to have found out something, right? To have found out some information. So, if I wanted to say we found out that we have a test today, I would say nosotros soup. I'm going to get my new stem, soup. And then because the subject's nosotros, I'm going to put my imos right there. See my imos? I'm going to put that on there. Supimos que hay un examen hoy. There it is. And that literally means the supimos here, in the preterite tense, in the past tense then, it doesn't mean to know any longer. Now it means to find out, to have found out. So we found out that there's a test today. Okay, we found out. So saber changes meaning in the preterite tense a little bit. Okay? All right, let's add our third group, which is going to go here underneath the oov. And this group is going to be our I group. I. So all of these verbs are going to get a new stem for the preterite tense, and their new stem will have an I in it. So our first verb is, excuse me, hacer. Remember, hacer means to do or to make. Hacer means to do or to make. So in the past tense, of course, it'll be did or made. It gets a totally new stem. And its new stem is H-I-C. H-I-C. And remember, H in Spanish is silent. So we're really going to pronounce that as is. Is. Venir. Venir means to come in Spanish. And it's a yoga verb. And it conjugates just like tener. So, vengo, vienes, viene, venimos, vienen in the present tense. In the past tense, it gets a new stem, and its new stem is V-I-N, which is being. Yeah. Okay. The next one is querer. Querer means to want or to desire. Right? Querer. It's a stem changer. In the present tense, it's an E to IE, but is it going to stem change in the past tense? In the preterite tense? No, it's not, because it's not an IR verb, it's an ER verb. Okay? This also gets a new stem, and its new stem is quis. Q-U-I-S. Quis. Okay. Okay, so let's make our box with our endings for this group. And guess what? Here's our box. The endings for this group are the same as the OOV group and the U group. They're exactly the same. Okay? So, it's going to be E, which is pronounced in Spanish as E, right? Tuve, or puse, iste, o, imos, and eran. So again, just take one of these endings and attach it onto this new stem over here, depending on your subject. So if you did something, tú, I would say tú hiciste. Because I'd added onto this is right here, the is, because remember H is silent, and then I put iste to the end of it because it's the to subject. Okay? Now, down here, there is a little caveat. There is a spelling change for hacer in the third person singular. The third person singular of hacer, which is the one for él and ella and usted, right? So go ahead and write that little caveat there. All right, we're going to say third person singular of hacer. Put a little asterisk mark next to it. So the third person singular of hacer, él, ella, and usted, actually has a slight spelling change. And that's going to become so with a Z instead of a C. So with that third person singular for the verb hacer, we're going to have it with a Z. See right here? H-I-Z-O, hizo. And we do that, and we change that C to a Z right there, right, the hizo, to maintain the sound of the C. Because right here, the sound of the C is going to sound like an S. Hice, hiciste, hicimos, hicieron. But if you put a C in front of an O, it changes the sound of the C. The C now will sound like a K. So we would have ico, and that changes the sound of the verb. So to keep it an S sound, we change that C to a Z, but only in third person plural, only for he, she, and usted, you formal. Okay? Good. And we have our last group. This is a long video, but it's our last one. Last group. And this last group is the J. This is the J group. That means these verbs in the preterite tense are going to get a brand new stem, and that new stem is going to have a J in it. Okay? So the first one we want to do is decir. Decir is an important verb. It means to say. Decir, to say or to tell. Okay? And it's going to get the new stem, and its new stem is di. D-I-J. Right? D-I-J. And I say D like that because remember, the J's in Spanish sound like an H. Hopefully y'all don't go to Mexican restaurants and order your fajitas with no jalapenos. We say, I'd like my fajitas with no jalapenos, por favor. So the J sounds like an H. So it's D. Pretend like an H is at the end of it when you say it. Okay. Then we have some verbs that pretty much look alike. They're the cir verbs. They end in ducir. D-U-C-I-R. And these are conducir, traducir, and producir. Conducir means to drive. Traducir means to translate. And producir means to produce. These all change in a similar fashion. So, conducir is going to go to condu. Traducir goes to tradu. And producir goes to produ. So they all get a D-U-J at the end of their new stem. Okay, see those D-U-Js at the end of it? All right, and the last verb is traer. And traer means to bring. And the new stem for that is tra. T-R-A-G. Tra. Remember, traer means to bring, so this would be brought. Yo traje unas flores. I brought some flowers. Not bought, brought. Yo traje mi libro de español a clase. I brought my book to class. Okay. With this group, we're going to do our endings. And you say, why, Miss Lopez? The endings have all been the same so far, except for this group. This group has a little bit of a different ending. Okay? Not by much, but just a little bit. All right? So I made my box up here because I'm running out of room. But here's where we're going to put our endings for our J group. All right? The yo form's the same. The to form also the same. Iste. Él, ella, and usted. O. Nosotros, hemos. Good. Here's where the change comes for the J group. In the J group only. Third person singular. Ellos, ellas, and ustedes becomes eran. E-R-O-N. There's no I. There's no I right there in that third person plural. See it? Where my asterisk is? It's just E-R-O-N. Where every other group has had I-E-R-O-N. The J group doesn't have an I. It ends in E-R-O-N. Okay? So, it's a long video, but what we did was we have finished the preterite tense. And all of your rules are right here in one booklet. So when you take a test or take a quiz or do your homework, you don't have to keep flipping through the book and saying, where is that? Where is that in the book? Where did they talk about that? It's all right here. And again, like I said, on these last 3 pages, we're going to introduce the other present tense, the other past tense, the imperfect. We're going to do the imperfect here, the irregular imperfect here, and then I'm going to teach you how to use the two together, the preterite and the imperfect together on this sheet. So all of your information from chapters 6, 7, 8, and 9 are going to be right here in one place. So that's why I think this book is so handy. All right. I will see you later.